Hello and welcome to the Webmethod Unplugged. My name is Robert McKay, and I will be guiding you through the journey that we're going on today with leaders across the industry as we talk about different things ranging from IT security to identity to different components of the industry. What's happening, what's working, what's changing, and what's coming next. Let's dive in.
Good morning, good afternoon from wherever you're listening at in the world today. I am super excited to welcome an amazing guest that we're having today, Dara Gibson. She has an amazing story to tell and an amazing business to go along with that amazing story. I'd love to go ahead and kind of give a brief intro to Dara about who she is and about the business that she started and the organization that she's with, which is InfraGard. So here we go. So Dara helps businesses prepare for threats that they don't see coming. With dual lenses as a cybersecurity leader and a professional cyber insurance provider, she bridges the gap between prevention and protection. In today's digital world, resilience isn't an option. It's the difference between recovery and ruin. She empowers organizations not just to defend, but to endure. In conjunction with that, she runs the organization Cybersecurity Readiness Advisors, which empowers small to mid-sized organizations with tailored high-impact vCISO services to optimize cyber insurance, enhance cybersecurity awareness, strengthen incident response readiness, and build lasting business resilience. They are your trusted partner in navigating complexities of cybersecurity with confidence and clarity. Dara, thank you for joining us today.
Of course.
We are so glad to have you here today. We're glad to have your leadership and the insights that you're going to bring to the podcast. So let's go ahead and kick it off. I guess before we do, is there anything else that you'd like to share that I may have missed in that introduction?
One of the things I like to emphasize is our motto is secure excellence for cybersecurity readiness advisors. And I think that just ties in so well with the motto of the InfraGard Arizona, which is, again, we secure excellence in regards to the critical infrastructure by working with the FBI. So by working with those two concepts of cybersecurity readiness and InfraGard, I really can overlay that secure excellence across the ecosystem.
And I'm glad that you brought up the InfraGard component, because that really, I mean, that's actually how you and I met initially, right? Was because of the InfraGard event that was held, and it was about a year ago, I think, as I recall.
Yes, it might have been the same event that's coming up next week that it was exactly a year ago. So yeah, as funny as that.
Oh, super fun, super fun. So you're deeply involved in both of these organizations. So how do those roles connect for you?
I have the opportunity to be the president and CEO of InfraGard National, or Arizona, which is a member of the national organization, which is a nonprofit organization sponsored by the FBI. However, with that, I actually joined because they had a monthly cyber threat briefing originally. And I was like, hey, that's what I need as a cybersecurity professional building out an incident response team here in Arizona. That was all I needed. And it was about 6 months later that I was like, wait a minute, this organization is way bigger than just a monthly cyber threat briefing. And so from there, I not only built my involvement and engagement with them, but it's the protection of the entire critical infrastructure, all 16 sectors, right? So we take into account of manufacturing and construction and aviation, and we look at all of these on the bigger picture and say, how do we, as business owners, get the word to and from the FBI that either weird things are happening or good things are happening? And that is the true main mission of InfraGard, is to create that line of communication from 3-letter acronyms down to businesses, and of course, back up to those 3-letter acronyms, because it's so important to involve the appropriate people at the right time. Every member of InfraGard gets a special agent here in Arizona that we can contact when those weird things occur, right? So we don't have to go into the queue of the IC3.gov. There's nothing wrong with that. And a matter of fact, I highly suggest that people do fill that out when they need to. But as a member of InfraGard, you kind of get a front of the line pass. And of course, my kids freak out when they find out the FBI is calling mom's cell phone, right? But of course, it's usually a good thing when they're actually calling me, not a bad thing. So that's where that conversation comes in. And then, of course, over time, I built my own business to continue to build excellence but I wanted to focus on that small to medium-sized business entity. So often they're the ones that are hit first off because they're easy targets, right? They don't have those magical controls that the bigger Fortune 500s have, right? They can afford to have the larger endpoint detection and response capabilities. But a lot of times, deploying out the appropriate controls and having insurance as a part of your risk management program, you can secure with that excellence. As we mentioned, it's no longer the concept of always being secure, right? It's being resilient. We can't, no matter what business you're in, you can't avoid the bad things from happening. Think about how often we drive our cars on the street. How many idiotic drivers are out there, right? And every now and then, one of those idiotic drivers runs into you, crashes into you. It was something we tried to avoid. I'm a good driver, but that idiot was not, right? So, as business owners, we have to protect ourselves from the idiots.
Amen to that. Amen to that. That is amazing. And that's actually, that is an example that I have used with other small business owners. They're of all shapes, forms of life, right? Hey, you wouldn't get on the road and you wouldn't drive without insurance. And why is that? Well, because you've seen ABC, right? The laws that kick into effect and mandated as well, but essentially as you have something of value, you want to protect it, right? And you want to do the right things to protect where you've spent potentially the last 10, 15, 25, 30 plus years of your life building. And you probably want to do it in a way that aligns with the way the policies are written so that you don't get yourself into trouble. And I would say that I think this is probably a story worth mentioning at this point. I had a friend who it got into a fender bender from a cybersecurity conversation, and he didn't know that. He thought that this was a collision, an all out loss, and I, after everything was all said and done, I came back and I said, okay, so I've been counseling you now for a decade. And in that decade, do you remember that I said that you were a target? And that when the day came that you were going to have a bad day, and I said, and he's like, yeah, this was really awful. Would not, wouldn't want this on my worst enemy. And I said, okay, good. Understand this was not a wreck of like where your car's not salvageable and you're able to walk away from. I said, this was a fender bender.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, you're kidding. And I said, no, I'm not.
Yeah. I mean, small to medium-sized business owners don't have the capacity or the cash sitting in their drawer on their desk to withstand being out of business for 28, 30 days, right? And so that's why they need that financial risk transfer, as well as the ability to buy new laptops if the need arise, or help to try to figure out how did that bad thing happen. Again, using our car accident, we can identify if the brakes worked or if you pressed the gas pedal instead of the brake, right? We can figure those things out. But a lot of times, if you don't know how that happened, that's why you need your insurance company to help with that forensic investigation to figure out, why didn't your brakes work?
Yeah. First off, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for allowing me to share that side story there. You've led some incredible efforts over the past year. Can you share a few of the most impactful programs the InfraGard Arizona has delivered?
So this is actually a great time to continue our storytelling experience, right? So a little over a year ago, we had an FBI agent come to our annual member meeting. We do our Arizona 1 month every year. First week of October or first week of November, last week of October, right? All around the same time. So this time last year, we had an FBI agent come in and he gave us the whole logistical story of the McDonald's tabs that we used to play Monopoly with in the early 2000s.
Yep.
It was so fun. You figured out if you got the French fries or the $1 million, right? Well, it turned out it was a huge FBI scam. And you can actually watch it on HBO, and you can see the whole story unfold. And he was actually able to give us, because we're members of InfraGard, we're vetted with the FBI, we were able to kind of see the inside details of how that story unfolded. But then we look at more of a local scenario. And as you know, the government has been in influx federally down to statewide, right? For the past almost year now. And so in May, we as InfraGard members came together and said, hey, what is Arizona doing right? What can Arizona do to help protect our local people? And we found out Arizona on the whole is a leader of change within the federal government. We've actually
Really?
created a lot of very cool, we being Arizona, not
Yeah.
me personally, right?
Yeah.
But our Department of Homeland Security in Arizona has developed a lot of great programs where schools and nonprofits and organizations like that can take advantage of services that are held on a grander scale, and they're funded and backed so that whether the government is out of commission or working or not working, who knows? We're still knowing that we're protected on a cyber level. Because as you and I both know, CISA, for all intents and purposes, has been disbanded, right?
Yep.
The information sharing clause was actually sunsetted on September 30th of this year. So
Yeah.
you have to be very cautious with what you're sharing and who you're sharing it with. And again, Arizona has done a really great job with creating those trust sectors, right? One such program is ACTRA. And what they do is they actually utilize our InfraGard FBI vetting scenario to vet all of their members of ACTRA. And again, ACTRA's whole main purpose is to share threat intelligence and understand what's happening in Arizona along with our cyber threat briefings. So we found throughout that webinar that we really are doing a lot of great things. And from that, a lot of state CISOs from across the US are recognizing the impact that the positive impact that Arizona is having on our local critical infrastructures, and really taking heed at how they can manipulate and change some of their parameters to align closely with Arizona. So that's some of the impact that we're having. But then one really cool story recently, members of the Arizona InfraGard came now for our most recent annual member meeting, and we got to take over the Scottsdale Stadium in Scottsdale. How cool was that? We actually saw the field house where events occur. We saw the practice fields, and we got to really understand what it means to be resilient, not just on the cyber level, but on the physical as well as the mental, right? And really understanding those needs, that need for resiliency across the board. Again, we talked about this when we first opened up our conversation of we're never going to 100% prevent everything. So it's how we react, how we respond, and of course, how we come back into business. And just a few minor tweaks to how we respond to that crazy adventure is how we can actually become more resilient across the ecosystem. So our InfraGard has a strong impact, and it's great to have the opportunity to have these conversations and really see what's happening on the healthcare industry and what's happening in the manufacturing industry. Two totally different industries meeting different contexts of people. But guess what? The cyber threat actors, they don't care. They want the same
Yeah.
information. They want the
Yep.
data. They want to
Yep.
ruin your day, right? And having that knowledge that some threat actors are truly just doing it to be manipulative and evil, whereas some are funding their nation state militaries from the acts of money being withdrawn from your bank account. That knowing those things helps you be more resilient, because now the manufacturing company and the healthcare company and the tourist company, they may all be saying the same threat actor. And if we have these conversations and these opportunities to tell these stories, we can build better, resilient organizations.
So I'm curious,
Mhm.
what do you think it is about Arizona that has fostered this amazing dynamic that's allowed us to become a leader among the other states, right? So essentially, there's this large following within the security sector that has, that InfraGard is involved with, that your company, Cybersecurity Readiness Advisors, that's involved with, and there's something about Arizona, and I've been not my entire life, but gosh, for sure my entire adult life. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, what is it about Arizona that has allowed this to happen? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Okay, I'm going to steal a quote from ASU. We're number one in innovation, right? So, although I'm not an ASU grad, I love that quote of number one in innovation because it really allows Arizona to have that forward thought process, to really see what the future needs. Did you know that Arizona just recently built a regional security operations center in southern Arizona?
No.
The concept is it's state run again. So again,
Okay.
this forward thinking process. The center
Yeah.
combines live security operations, expert mentorship, and state of the art technology to train our next generation of cybersecurity professionals. Because Robert, let's be real, you and I want to retire someday. And if we keep letting AI take all these younger jobs away, you and I are going to be stuck behind our desk for 100 more years. So again, Arizona had the forward thinking process to say, you know what, if we create a regional security operations center that
Yeah.
trains these young people or mid-change careers, then we have the opportunity to create better for digital forensic experts, create that threat detection analysis moving forward, truly
Yeah.
understand what does incident response look like. Because although
Yeah.
the threat actors are all hitting the same targets, those
Yeah.
responses need to look a little bit different for each individual organization. So now here we are in Arizona, again, number one in innovation, having that real world cyber defense concept of training in a larger expertise. So now we're letting these people have real world experience instead of just saying, thanks, glad you read that in that book. Glad you passed it on your certification test. Because I know I remember everything from every certification test I took. Question
Yeah.
59, letter C. I'm sure we remember.
So who was involved with that? Because I'll tell you, the first thing that kind of popped to my mind, I was thinking about the fusion centers that exist,
Mhm.
and I mean that might be a different whole nother ball of wax, right? Maybe not unaffiliated in any way, but I wondered if this idea was connected. I'm assuming InfraGard is potentially connected in some way with the Security Operations Center as well. And I do need to put a plug for InfraGard at being a member, and I will tell you that me personally, I love the updates that we get out, that, who we can share these with. So essentially, in terms of making sure that that data is available in terms of what's being supplied. And so I'll shamelessly say that I've been a member for many, many years. And I think that the data that is being supplied by the InfraGard has immense value. So sorry, aside InfraGard, from a plug perspective, the Security Operations Center, how is InfraGard connected, or is InfraGard connected with that?
We can be, right?
Okay.
It was originally designed by the state of Arizona. So they, on the greater level of the state of Arizona, have had the foresight to say, you know what, we need to do better. We need to
Yeah.
stop telling these college grads, go get a job. There's 50 trillion cybersecurity jobs available for you. Let's be real, there really isn't. So let's
Yeah.
do better, right? And so I know Governor Katie Hobbs had a big impact with the development of that Security Operations Center. And,
Okay.
I'm also a member of WESIS. So our goal is to provide that mentor and guidance and recruit, retain, and get women into the field of cybersecurity. Again,
Yeah.
huge component of that operations center down in southern Arizona as well.
Well, I think that we definitely need to tag Governor Hobbs in this podcast, because that is something that's near and dear to my heart, and the fact that she's taken an active role in that is amazing, and I love it.
It plays a
So
huge role in the cybersecurity readiness, cybersecurity talent ready AZ. That, I guess, is the correct name of the program that they're working on.
so this is interesting. So essentially, in talking about reaching out, right? So to women in IT, but no, we didn't say it wasn't women in IT. It was women in cybersecurity. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
My apologies. So women in cybersecurity, the younger generation, right? Encouraging them so that, at some point, to your point, we can retire.
Yeah.
We end up having those individuals that are potentially outside of the area, so more of the rural area. How has that outreach gone?
So we're building, right? We're really trying to develop good programs, both from InfraGard and from WESIS as a whole. I made it a really strong commitment of my own as the president of InfraGard this year to do more outreach. So we're actually changing some of our bylaws for our InfraGard local chapter to have connecting outreaches in Southern Arizona and Northern Arizona. So we're going to have 3 vice presidents next year to make sure that we're
Congratulations.
reaching one in Northern Arizona, one in Central Arizona, and one in Southern Arizona, because so often we find that where the leadership lives, those are where the events are. And if you're
Yep.
an all Arizona organization, this is true for the AZ Tech Council, WESIS, ISACA, you fill in the letters of any cool name, but InfraGard, right? So I felt as a leader to the cybersecurity as well as InfraGard, we needed to do outreach to all the extent of Arizona. And so that's why we're going to continue to grow and have more outreach to those rural areas starting in 2026.
So I'll tell you. So my background, I actually come from a very small farming community. And by small farming community, I mean there were more cows than people in this community. There was definitely more tractors, probably even potentially, than people in this community. And so, which is just to say that the community was small. It was a little town called Brawley. And what you're describing, so different state, it was in California, but the idea still remains the same, that there are small communities with individuals like you and I that would have an absolute interest in lending a hand, assisting in some way, caring about the fact that there is some sort of security net around their own community and or the businesses that operate there, because they need that type of protection too. And this type of outreach impacts those individuals in a very positive way. So again, coming from me, thank you for doing that, because that actually hits pretty close to home for me.
So let's even build a better part of that. So one of the initiatives that we're taking, it's going to be a very cool event on February 20th. Arizona InfraGard has helped to sponsor Ranch Fest. So ranchfest.com is the website that you can go sign up. And the entire day is going to be talking about the cybersecurity protections, agricultural protections, biotech protections, physical protections, all of these security features that InfraGard can help support. But we have been asked to help the agricultural community of all of Arizona create this Ranch Fest. And the coolest thing is, at the end of the day, after we get to talk and network and create tabletop exercises and plan for the future of agricultural growth in Arizona, we get to watch a rodeo. How cool is that? Right? So this is going to be a great opportunity for anybody, whether you're in agriculture, biotech, cybersecurity, or physical security. And I'm sure I missed a couple of securities along the way, right? But they're all going to be integrated into Ranch Fest on February 20th.
So stinking fun. I love it. And oh gosh, I mean, talk about a segue in to agriculture and, smaller communities. I think that's fantastic. It is absolutely wonderful. I'd like to take a little bit of a turn to move away from the rural area and move into cybersecurity readiness advisors, specifically around the challenges that mid-sized organizations face when it comes to cybersecurity readiness. What challenges are they faced with that are potentially unique to them? And how is it that your organization can help them?
So I think the biggest challenge is communication. And I know that sounds peculiar, but truly understanding or having the opportunity to communicate in a secure manner, having the opportunity to understand and comprehend, there's our part of communication, how vulnerable these small businesses or medium sized businesses are really at. Not many people, again, we brought this up earlier, have $424,000 just cash laying in their desk. And they, whoever they are, because they're apparently much smarter than me, because they're the ones that run all these statistical analysis and they say that they know everything. But according to the insurance days, they say that 98% of breaches, and I use the B word, breaches would not occur if you had MFA. Because trust me,
Wait, hold on.
this thing.
They had MFA
No,
or did not?
if you have MFA,
Oh, okay.
they believe you will not get a breach. You
Okay.
may suffer a significant event. See how there's a slight difference?
Okay, that's interesting.
Right?
Yes.
So having that breach is the actual data exfiltrated out of your ecosystem, taken away.
Okay.
And now they're saying that there's multiple features of threats now. So what the threat actors are doing is they're coming in, they're encrypting your system, so they're locking you out. They've taken your equipment out, so that's 2. Oh, but don't forget, now they're threatening to sell it on the dark web. So that's 3. And having the opportunity to say, you know what? They believe that if you just put MFA in place, yeah, I know it's annoying, but you know what? Having that second thing to say, hey, you've got to make sure you've got it in place.
Yeah.
That's going to protect you and increase your lines of communication, because your MFA is something you know, something you have, or something you are. So I have a fingerprint. Well,
Yep.
Robert, you do too, right? But yours is totally different than mine, right? So you can't log into my phone because you don't have my irises and you don't have my fingerprint and you don't also know my password, right? So by having these multiple features, you're really protecting you personally, but you professionally, right? And just taking that 10 seconds to really make sure your MFA is deployed, and also taking advantage of the fact that a lot of your programs now have, especially cyber insurance, they have supplemental programs that are complementary. So they may be free, right? Hey, they're going to give you the opportunity to have a template for an incident response plan. How many of you actually have an incident response plan? Everyone should say yes, but a lot of people say no. But I bet, Robert, do you remember having fire drills as a kid in school?
Yes, absolutely.
We did them every month, right? So now as a business owner, we need to get in the habit of having those fire drills, but they're cybersecurity fire drills. And maybe we need to practice different types. Maybe practice a ransomware one. Maybe practice a business email compromise. I bet that story that you started with earlier in the thing was a fender bender because they had minute monies taken out of their bank account or an invoice that was manipulated. Those are small, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But a triple exfiltration, that's massive.
Wow. So I love the way that you pose this as a communication item, right? Because what happens when you have an incident response plan? Well, you have to talk to the other people inside of your business to put together a plan, and then you have to execute on it. And the only way all of these things happen is if if communication is happening. Because if that isn't happening, people are siloed. They're in this situation where they're not talking to each other, and you can't progress this idea forward. And so now you're exercising a muscle right? That maybe you're not used to.
Mhm.
And good for you as a business if you are doing this, right?
Yeah. And there's so many people that are out there willing to help and wanting to help and
Yeah.
create those incident response plans. To my point, I said a lot of your insurance companies are going to throw it in free of charge, right? And they're also going to help you communicate with those vendors on their panel, right? They're also going to say, hey, you know what? Robert, you have 30 minutes that you can talk to one of these three attorneys. So you
Yeah.
can know that who you're going to call when that time comes. I know that I can pick up the phone and I can call, X company, and I'm going to speak to that particular lawyer because I've had that conversation with them. Right.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm truly just going through Google and finding cybersecurity lawyers, I don't know who I'm getting.
Yep.
And Lerner and Rowe are great with accidents, but do they know cyber accidents? I don't know.
Right.
I've never dealt
Right.
with them on a cyber accident before.
So, oh, man, this is amazing. This is such good stuff. What type of strategies have you found most effective in helping these organizations elevate their security posture?
I think we need to break it down first
Okay.
and start from zero, right? And
Okay.
show them how to spell cybersecurity. If it means taking it down to the bare bones and looking at their stack,
Yeah.
then that's where we start, right? Helping them
Sure.
understand what that means. And did you know we actually made it 32 minutes without mentioning AI? Go us. I'm moving our record right here, right? So every single day we use AI, whether we like it
Yep.
or know it or not, right? And so you also have to take into consideration, how are you using AI? Are
Yeah.
you using Claude, Gronk, Gemini, ChatGPT? Are you using all of these? Write it
Yep.
down. Take an inventory of what programs you're using and where you might be leaking data, right? Because if you're using open source code, I don't know what ChatGPT is doing with my data. I won't use DeepSeek because I definitely don't know what they're doing with my data.
Yep.
you know so understanding where you're using AI, now also understanding what components you're using online, right? So for example, if you're using Salesforce, I'm
Yep.
picking on Salesforce for a reason because they were hit earlier this year, so was Workday,
Oh,
right?
shoot. Oh, shoot.
So these are huge companies, right?
Yep.
But it was their ability to be resilient. So if you know you're using Salesforce, or you know you're using HubSpot, or you know you're using CrowdStrike, right? All of these
Right.
companies are using AI, but understanding how you're using them will also
Yep.
impact your security features. And these
Yeah.
need to be brought in to your conversation, whether you're buying cyber insurance or not, because you also need to know, what are your customers expecting of you? So this is a part of your incident response fire drill, right? So if you have a contract that you've written with people that says, hey, you know what, if something happens, we understand that something may happen, but let us know within 24 hours, 72
Yep.
hours, four
Yep.
hours. Okay, 4 hours is kind of crazy because you don't even know what happened sometimes.
Right.
But understanding what's written in those contracts needs to be deployed, because if you're doing your incident response plan and you're on day 6 and you never let that company know on hour 24 what happened, now that's a totally different legality situation that you're in. Not only are you
Right.
in a cyber situation, but
Shoot.
now you're in a
Yeah.
contract situation.
Oh, man. So, how would you? So, if you've got, as you come in,
Mhm.
and there's a business that has done the same thing for many years, and they don't feel like they're a target, and I'm specifically thinking of a friend of mine.
Mhm.
How would you convey this to? How would you convey this to a small, medium-sized business? How would you convey this to them in that there is urgency here? Is there a way to do it without FUD? Right? Is there a way to convey this message to them in a what I would call a sort of in a build motion, right? Because I don't want, because fear and uncertainty and doubt, that's not going to be a permanent, gosh, what's the word? Like motivator to a business owner. At least I don't think it would be
Right.
long term.
So that's why you need to have that conversation more in a business strategy level, right? Where's your return of investment? If you spend X, how are you saving Y? Or
Yeah.
if you spend X dollars doing whatever for cybersecurity, how does
Yeah.
that relate back to the company? Business owners, CEOs, C-suite, whatever the magic term is of the day, they don't care on, nitpicky little, we had 30,000% of our phishing reports brought in. What does that mean? Right? But if you have one Luke Skywalker that clicks on that link, how fast is your company going to go down? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How fast are you going to be devastated? These are the facts that business owners need to understand.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not in dollars and cents. It's, oh my gosh, you're going to lose everything. Not just you, but your reputation, right?
Yeah.
Marks and Spencer's is a large shopping center in the UK, right? And
Yeah.
it took them almost 2 months to get operational again, right?
Oh my gosh.
So how many
Oh, wow.
people are actually still shopping in Marks and Spencer's in the UK knowing that it took that long for them to be resilient? They did actually become resilient. So again, it built the right parameters in place, just not to the speed or the capacity that they wanted, right? So now we bring that back to your friend who's the business owner.
Yeah.
And I'm going to even kind of make an assumption here that maybe that person's an accountant, right? And they're like, oh, I'm just a small accountant. I just do people's taxes. And, January to April, I'm super busy. The rest of the time I'm on the golf course. Okay, I made an assumption, but whatever. We're going to pick on accountants for a second. But accountants know that they have social security numbers of their clients.
Yep.
They have
Yep.
banking information of their clients. They have emails, phone numbers, addresses, date of births, all of this data that is very, very valuable to threat actors.
And it's sitting all in one spot, right? And there's going to be many of them. It's not just one business that you hit. You hit however many that accountant is tied to.
So that's
that would never happen.
When small business owners are like, I'm just an accountant. I'm like, oh, you're a prime target for a threat actor.
Well, first off, thank you for sharing that. I'd like to take a little bit of a turn and go back to InfraGard for a moment, if that's okay. So InfraGard Arizona has a strong culture of volunteerism. How do you inspire that level of engagement?
Oh, I'm going to be blunt, and this year's been tough.
Okay.
The national portal, the FBI decided that they wanted to change our portal from .org to .gov. Apparently it takes 1 million years to do this. So it kind of blocks a lot of people out. However, we're going to be more secure in the end because they're changing us to idme.gov for a part of our vetting system, right? So we're getting a deeper vetting capacity. We're bringing in different versions of this. So it's been very difficult this year to get volunteers to say, hey, I want to become a member. I want to help. I want to do what I can. I'm like, well, we'd love to have you join us, but I can't, right? So let's be truthful and honest. It's really hard to say, hey, I want you to volunteer, but you're not allowed to. That's difficult, right? But we're coming over the precipice as soon as the government opens, I think.
Yeah.
So, but
we're like, at some point it has to happen, right? At some point it has to open back up, right? No, I'm totally tracking on that, right? So it would be difficult to do that, but I would say that your enthusiasm is infectious, right? So you're like, okay, hey, we do want you to volunteer. We absolutely do, because that is true. We absolutely want you to volunteer. We want you to participate. We want you to engage. And
we've had a lot of new people join recently. And to the fact of they see the value and the necessity of having these open lines of communication. And so a lot of them see my pain points and they're like, hey, how can I help you? How can we make
Yeah.
Arizona's InfraGard that much stronger?
Yep.
And I am grateful for that opportunity for these people to say, how can I help? It's a simple question, but you know what? You get a lot of great answers because sometimes it's, hey, can you work the booth? And Robert, that's how you and I came. Like, I need some help. I can't do it
Yep.
myself. And you're like,
Yeah.
I can work the booth, right? And others are like, hey, can I help with a golf tournament for a fundraiser? Absolutely. Hey, can I help be the sector chief for the financial services? That person that's the sector chief, we call them, they're the ones
Yeah.
communicating with local financial industry people or manufacturing, or we have an opening right now for people that are dealing with dams and water, right? So it's a need here in Arizona, right? So if you have somebody that you know in your network that is working with dams or water or building those type of features, we need that help. We need that person to step up and say, I can help. I can be that communication strategy, because whether it's working a booth at a vendor fair or maybe going out and meeting new companies to say, hey, did you know what InfraGard does? Here's how we can help disseminate this information. And it's just simple as, maybe it is that cyber threat briefing once a month. Maybe that's all they need, but maybe they also want the closed door, behind the scenes details of that FBI situation, that they can say, you know what, that same thing happened to us, or that same thing happened to my neighbor. And by extending that communication, it builds
Yeah.
additional resilience.
No, I love it. So, in regards to building those bridges, what role does the community alignment and shared purpose play in building that resilience
So that's how
that we've
we
been taught?
InfraGard survive, right? We
Yeah.
cannot be effective if we don't have local community involvement.
Yeah.
Having new businesses join to say, you know what, I'd like to learn more about how the FBI is impacting Arizona. I'd like to know more about how additional 3-letter acronyms are helping Arizona. I'd like to participate and say, you know what? I know the CISA law was sunsetted. So let's see how we can effectively share communication, share threats, share vulnerabilities, share exploits that allows people to be protected in a manner that still protects us from liability as well. And so we need the local community to participate. And we need those agricultural people to participate. And you know what? If they participate in that event in February, they're going to become more knowledgeable on situations that maybe they hadn't thought of, or maybe they thought of it in one angle, but not the other. And now it gives them the bigger picture to really enhance their knowledge moving forward. So we do need the community for listening, opening lines of communication, creating additional resilience, and saying, hey, you know what, this worked for us, this is what we did, this is how we fixed this situation. And sometimes it's just listening, saying, oh, you know what, I'm going to take that into heat, because my business could be the next one impacted, and if I know how that business handled this situation, I can handle it moving forward. Or maybe it's, a physical security threat. We've had a lot of events here in Arizona recently, from the Super Bowl to the Charlie Kirk funeral, right? At the Super Bowl stadium, right? And so by having these larger events, we also need to be prepared and understand what to look for, what to think of. And we don't want to be fearful. We don't want to have that FUD atmosphere. But when you see the weird drone coming overhead and you're like, what is it doing? Right?
Where did this come from?
What is it doing? Why is it overhead? What's it thinking? What's it collecting? Where's it doing? Who's it sending the information back? It causes
Yeah.
us to pause and ask those questions. And
Yeah.
maybe it's really not supposed to be there. Maybe it is, but there are certain situations where being that little bit cognizant allows you to be a better human being.
I want to thank you for sharing the real world impact that we've kind of, as we've been going along, right? Because it hasn't just been, oh, here's this abstract concept. You're like, no, you keep bringing it back to, hey, here's this company where X happened. Here's this event that occurred. Here's the sequence of events that has occurred. And here's how it impacts, right?
Mhm.
Here is an example of a small business and how that, while seemingly benign in nature, there's this cascading sets of things that will occur, right? So it's not ephemeral, it's actual, it's tangible. And I want to say thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Moving into the next piece, which is the Arizona as a national motto for excellence. InfraGard Arizona has earned a reputation as a national model for excellence. What do you think has driven that success? And I think we touched a little bit on Arizona as like a whole, but this is speaking specifically to the InfraGard portion.
So let me just toot our horn for a couple of minutes. We had our president Congress meeting a few months back. Arizona actually brought home 2 trophies. So
Oh,
we are very proud of our people and our volunteers that allow us to be successful and have that ability to say, you know what, we are doing good work here and we're helping the local community. And we can't do it without going back to our volunteers, right? If I did everything as the president, the organization will flop, right? Because I'm only one human being. So we have to extend out that greatness to our organization as a whole. So we really are striving to be better moving forward and learning from the past couple of years and things we've done in the past, things that worked, things that didn't, and things that allow us to grow. One example is we had a great website that was built about 10 years ago, right? Because
oh,
Arizona we just celebrated our 25th birthday, by the way, not Arizona, but Arizona InfraGard. And
woo.
so we're 25. We're like adults, right? So
Yeah,
now we had a website that was doing a great job doing its thing, but we decided we needed change. So we really looked at it and said, how can we make it have that forward thinking? How can we reach more people with our website? So we included our 16 critical infrastructures with data and information on the back end. And we included our events that we're hosting, right? So again, it's that better communication across the board, which allows us to reach more people, allows other facets to join and participate. And of course, extending that outreach to the next person to say, you know what, InfraGard has a strong communication capacity. Why don't you come join us, right? And so if each healthcare entity brought another healthcare entity in, and if each financial services brought another financial services entity in, think of how much we can grow and how much more impact we can have.
yeah.
Because when that catastrophic event hits, be it cyber, be it physical, be it biotech, we need to have that network of professionals in place to say, hey, we're going to reach our critical infrastructure. We're going to hit our 16 sector chiefs. Our 16 sector chiefs are going to have the opportunity to call and say, hey, here's what's happening. Here's what we need to do. And
Yeah.
now we're building that outreach of communication. So the FBI actually wants us to grow to, they want us to double in the next year, which I believe we can do. And the reason for
That
that,
is an ambitious goal. Wow.
well, we went from 300 to 900 in 1 year's time. So then we went from 900 to 1300 in another 6 months time. So now my goal in my last year of presidency is to go from 1300 to 2600. And the way we can do that here locally is by just letting somebody else in our sector know, or somebody else in a different sector say, hey, here's what we're doing. Join this
Yeah.
webinar, join this information gathering session, and be a part of the ecosystem. Because if you have somebody that you can reach out to, and I have somebody that I can reach out to, guess what? Now the FBI has 2 that they can reach out to. And I say that because situations do occur where they do need our help, and vice versa, right? So there was a school system down in southern Arizona that an FBI agent showed up on their doorstep, right? How scary is that? It
Oh,
is
shoot.
very frightening that I'm FBI agent so-and-so, I'm at your door, right? So the school panicked. They called their insurance company. The insurance company said, hey, you know what? Dara Gibson's in Arizona. I'm going to call her. She's the InfraGard president. And because I'm in the insurance industry and the InfraGard, they called me and said, hey, is FBI agent so-and-so really a real person? I'm like, well, why didn't you just call the FBI office? But you know what? They felt trusted and they built that network of trust with me included, which is quite
Yeah.
the honor, right? But
Yeah.
they felt more capable and trustworthy for me than
Yeah.
to say calling a 1-800 number, right? So I was able to then call my network
Yeah.
of FBI agents, says, hey, is FBI agent so-and-so down in Tucson a real person? And
Yeah.
again, their response was, why didn't they just call the FBI office? But anyways, so round circle we came, and I called the insurance called the school district. The school district finally left the door open to the FBI agent. But
Yeah.
it's that circle of trust. And because that circle of trust grows just a little bit every single day, we now have a forward-thinking ecosystem. That number one in innovation moving forward, number one in communication. And you know what? It's a lot easier to call someone you trust than to truly pick a phone number and say, I think this might be the right number.
It sounds like you've created a recipe. I mean, I just heard a very detailed recipe that other InfraGard essentially could model. Like other folks in the InfraGard in other states could model this and take this. And I gotta agree. If I was the school, I would call you and be like, hey, like, I mean, you're the person that pops top of my mind. If I'm calling anybody connection with the FBI, and I'll tell you something, we do a bunch of work for the DOJ. I still am calling you before I call anybody that I know, just because it's just that's the connection I have in my head.
Right.
We're going to call InfraGard because InfraGard, from a community perspective, this is who should be taking those calls. That may not be fair, but at the end of the day, InfraGard is who I'm going to call because that's who's the presence here. It's not the FBI agents. Heck, and as I think about it, there's even a couple in my mind. I still am calling InfraGard first because that's who's doing the community outreach. That's who has the relationship.
Yeah. We built those communications and we built that relationship, to your point. Mm-hmm.
I think that just says, so you said something that caught my attention. So you said this is the last year. Did I catch that right?
I will term out as president next October. Yes, that's correct.
Oh my goodness. Holy smokes.
So I'm
so many
looking
questions.
for the next person that wants to volunteer.
All right. Well, we'll definitely add that. In fact, we should probably make a whole clip about that. Like, hey, we need to find who is going to be the next president of InfraGard when Dara's not here anymore. I can't even imagine. Like, quite frankly, you are InfraGard for me. Like,
so funny.
Like you are the face.
I bet this week.
No. Even after all of the wonderful members that I've met, like essentially at the end of the day, this is who I come back to. But so, all right. So we've kind of now tracked towards the end of the podcast here. And so I'd love to invite you to share any sort of final thoughts that where the listeners could like learn more about you, about the InfraGard, about your company. I think that, so I generally there's only like one bit of information to connect with when we bring somebody in, but there's so much more here. What's the best way to get a hold of you? How can people get a hold of you to ask more about any of these items?
Well, I love social media. And yes, even as a cybersecurity person, I am on TikTok, right? I'm not very good with it just because it's really noisy, but I am a cyber chick on TikTok, right? I'm Gibson Dara on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I have multiple web pages. So I'm available on the outreach. And a matter of fact, if you Google me, I come up a lot. But InfraGard, azinfragard.org is the easiest one for the InfraGard capacity. DaraGibson.com is the another one. Cyberready.io is another website. On the easiest way is just to figure out how you'd like to communicate. Some people prefer text messaging, so they actually have my cell phone number and they do text, right? Others do reach out online, and some do reach out to me on TikTok, because to the younger generation out there, there's not many people that are providing a wealth of knowledge for their next career move. And I do strive to do that as well, as a mentor and a guide for
Yeah.
people getting into the industry, men and women, right? It doesn't matter whether
Yeah.
you're black, white, plaid, or purple. I'm looking to retire eventually. And so I want to make sure the next generation is smart enough to handle cybersecurity moving forward.
I want to put two things out here. I think it's important, and hopefully I'm deviating a little bit what we normally do in the podcast. So that SOC, that center that we talked about, that's here, what is a way that somebody could learn more about that?
It's called the Regional Security Operations Center in Southern Arizona. The
Okay.
Regional Security Operations Center in Southern Arizona. That
Okay.
would be where I would start Googling that. So,
Okay. That's a little bit outside of what we were, but that just really did catch my attention. And I know that right now, we are in the middle of a government shutdown, and we are, and some transitioning's happening at InfraGard, but I absolutely want, like, for those individuals that are wanting to volunteer and participate, what advice would you have for them? I'm just thinking, don't give up. Definitely, we want you here.
yes.
Is there anything that we can share with them?
Well, the sign behind me actually says thankful, right? I am thankful for our volunteers, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to speak on your podcast today, because azinfragard.org, we are collecting names for that wait list to say, hey, I want to join. And the reason why we have to hold off is because we do an FBI check on every single person that's within our organization, because we are entrusted within the ecosystem of security. And so we have to go through those extra measures, or else it's not a valuable situation moving forward. So that's why we have our wait list, to make sure that we're doing it right. And so just contact azinfragard.org. And as the magic quote is, we can't spell InfraGard because it's missing a U, because we need you, right? So it's INFRAGARD, right? Because we're looking for you to participate. And that's where we are going to move forward with that.
I am going to tell you, I am now going to be able to spell this correctly now forever, because you shared that here. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. I hope the listeners were able to take away some value, because I have at least a half a dozen different points that I'm just like sitting here thinking, oh, I am so grateful that you came. And with that being said, for those that are listening, thank you for joining for another episode of Webmethod Unplugged, and we'll look forward to catching you next time. Have a good one. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.